Rome knew how to turn rumor into judgment. In a single night, the most powerful woman in the empire became an example, not in the forum, but in the gardens. Was it justice? Was it fear? Or was it the usual method? Paperwork, denunciation, and political urgency. Today we open the dossier of Valeria Messalina, 1st century AD, to ask how a domestic accusation escalated into a matter of state. Rome, circa 48 AD. Claudius, 10 BC 54 AD, Roman emperor, methodical administrator, dependent on palace, advisors, governs after the chaos of Caligula. His wife Valeria Messalina, c. 1748 AD, empress consort, young, powerful in granting favors and punishments within the palace, accumulates enemies among influential freedmen and marginalized aristocrats. Among those orbiting power are Narcissus, a freedman and imperial secretary, manager of correspondence and summary decisions, as well as Silius, a Roman senator, attractive and ambitious, close to courtly circles. And there is a backdrop that Rome understands well. Private alliances create public policies. Sources speak of adultery, clandestine marriage, and conspiracy. But our focus is different. Documents and denunciations that transform a bedroom matter into an institutional danger. What, in the records, supported the decision to act without the Senate, without a full trial, in haste? And above all, who profited when Messalina fell? The trail doesn't begin in the garden, it begins at the desk. Ancient accounts describe written notices and reports from freedmen that reach Claudius when he is away from Rome. The content: a formal accusation that Messalina had married Silius, a legal sign of the symbolic deposition of the emperor in the domestic sphere, a political gesture, not just a moral one. Narcissus becomes a curator of panic. He compiles testimonies, coordinates messages to the Praetorian Guard, and hastens the emperor's return. The administrative logic is clear. Paperwork creates urgency. Urgency creates competence to act outside of protocol. The surviving texts, cited by later authors, emphasize three formulas: periculum publicum, public danger, transforming scandal into a matter of state; confessio, confession, obtaining the word of those involved to validate the action; mandatum, mandate, immediate authorization to arrest and execute. The itinerary of these warnings is calculated. First, the cabinet. Freedmen collect statements, cross-reference names and places. Then, the Praetorian Guard. Without an order, no one moves. With a written mandate, doors and gardens cease to be private and become areas of competence. Finally, the emperor, not as a deceived fiancé, but as the supreme magistrate with an obligation to protect the city. In this circuit, Narcissus acts as an orchestrator. He decides what comes first, how it arrives, and with what urgency. Whoever controls the sequence of roles controls the pace of decisions. That's how a domestic dispute, presented in the right vocabulary, gains uniformity, password, and schedule. Rome likes ritual, but thrives on exceptions. When the message carries the mark of public danger, the machine shifts gears. 3 gears explain why summary execution is necessary: extraordinary competence of the prince. The emperor can decide outside the ordinary route, extra ordinem, especially when there is a risk of tumult, barracks, mutiny, or symbolic usurpation. A clandestine marriage with a senator is not gossip. It's a sign that there's a party willing to transform bedroom drama into a political program. Time is proof. In palace scandals, delay favors alliances, versions are coordinated, witnesses evaporate, rituals are undone and reenacted. The rapid procedure produces a fait accompli in the opposite direction. It removes the protagonists from the scene and disarms the possibility of it becoming a spectacle in the Senate. Square and barracks. The Praetorian Guard obeys the script and the climate. A direct order with the language of a mandate prevents the troops from being swallowed up by ambiguity. If the barracks hesitate, the city hears the rumor before the edict. If it hears the rumor, an opinion is formed before the proof. None of this invents a shortcut of 48 AD out of thin air. It is consistent with the administrative grammar that Rome already knew. Consider two parallel micro-examples, not equivalent to the Messalina case, but useful for understanding the language of power. Sejanus, 31 AD, Tiberius, and the urgency of neutralizing an armed favorite. The logic of periculum publicum appears when the palace reads danger in an institutional key. The favorite with military access becomes a threat, and the combination of mandate plus praetorians transforms suspicion into immediate action. The Senate then registers it. The real decision happens in the time of the guard. Piso's conspiracy, 65 AD, Nero, and the administration of denunciation. Here, the manual for pre-packaged plea bargaining is laid bare. Letters and confessions produce a chain of warrants, and the state's response consists of arrests, forced suicides, and official records that close the controversy on paper. The full procedure gives way to administrative action in the name of danger. What do these parallels show? That efficiency. The mechanism doesn't depend solely on soldiers. It depends on the language that authorizes soldiers to act. The vocabulary that appears in the warnings, danger, mandate, urgency, is not ornamentation. It's a tool. In Messalina's case, the marriage with Silius is treated as a legal signal that produces competence. She breaks down the door of domestic matter and enters the realm of public order. The judgment takes place in reports and signatures, not on marble benches. A Rome of paper, efficient because it is unappealable in the timely manner of the crisis. Follow the benefit and you find the motive. Messalina's downfall redistributes access and fear, two perfect currencies for governing. Those freed from the cabinet gain prominence. Whoever delivered the crisis as a dossier becomes indispensable. Doors begin to open with receipts of newly demonstrated loyalty. Aristocratic rivals breathe a sigh of relief. Without the patron who made and unmade domestic alliances, businesses, and marriages, old projects regain oxygen. The prince himself cultivates an image of order, an emperor who listens, decides, and normalizes. In post-Caligula Rome, the message is worth its weight in gold. Silius and his allies, real or presumed, lose position, future, and influence. Without their names, many requests cease to exist. The less visible yet central gain is the precedent. By accepting that the administration intervened in a domestic crisis labeled as a threat, the palace consolidates a shortcut, the way around the Senate when politics begins at home. And whoever masters the technique of the shortcut, right role, right time, right door, begins to dictate the pace of future scares. When the dust settles, the palace relearns how to walk. The cabinet rearranges secretariats. Narcissus capitalizes on the crisis and selects who ascends to the decision-making tables. The Praetorian Guard registers obedience to the role as an institutional virtue, and whoever guided them on the right day becomes a reference for the next right day. In the aristocratic circle, contracts sealed by Messalina's alliances are loosened. Newlyweds reappear, guardianships change hands, and some families regain old positions under the guise of restoring decorum. The flow of petitions reveals the logic of gain. The more a name appears in the rolls of the following day, concessions, pardons, confirmations, the more it becomes clear who profited from the dismantling. There are also invisible losses, missing documents, witnesses who don't remember, a useful silence surrounding mourning decisions. The scandal, packaged in the language of public order, resolves old rivalries under the label of necessity. The turnaround is not a speech, it's a rhythm. The case doesn't go to the Senate as a full-blown spectacle. The decision has already been executed when the reports reach the benches. What remains for the Senate is to record what has already been done, and the record, in Rome, is worth as much as the sword that motivated it. Immediate consequences. Exemplarity. The city learns the grammar of urgency. What is said in periculum publicum does not wait for debate. Strengthened. Administration. Trust in freed scribes and the correspondence machine grows. Future crises will seek the same shortcut. Biased memory. The versions that survive are those that fit on pages, and pages carry authors with moral and political agendas. The sources that demonize Messalina serve not only to judge her, but to discipline women close to power and men who orbit them. Claudio leaves obedient to his own administration. Whoever organized the dossier also organized the solution. The image of a government without spectacle pleases those who fear the return of chaos. The legacy is technical and moral. Technical because it consolidates a procedure, formatted denunciation, language of danger, mandate, praetorian action, record. Moral because it crystallizes a narrative useful to the discipline of the court. The palace as a place where private and public exchange clothes and names according to the needs of the day. The ancient sources that shape our memory, think of Tacitus, Suetonius, and Cassius Dio, diverge in tone and target. One emphasizes moralism and example, another collects anecdotes that educate by shock, a third seeks political coherence in long series. Modern reconstruction, when it filters out this noise, tends to see less sexual scandal and more palace engineering, written words that produce competence to act. The minimum precision that withstands the test of time is this. There are converging accounts of the speed of the decision. There is consistent vocabulary of danger and mandate. There is a detectable reorganization in the sequence of concessions and absences soon after the episode. The rest, bedroom details, was useful exaggeration to teach the city to fear the bad example and at the same time justify the administrative shortcut. If a written warning can move guards and remove a name, pamphlets can move an entire city. In the next episode, the favorites fall. Murder in the Tower, England 1613. The Overbury case, where poison, letters, and patronage vie for the verdict. If you want court scandals in clear dossiers, document, mechanism, motive, consequence.